this is how I scan. I never thought in a million years that I would be doing a video like this. The topic of today's video is going to be scanning your film after you've developed it. The reason I never thought I'd be doing a video like this is because I'm not particularly fussed about scanning. There are Facebook groups out there dedicated to getting the best results that you possibly can from your own scans, and I have to say it doesn't interest me in the slightest. But very kindly, Hamish from Pixelator asked me if I would do some demonstration videos of some sort talking about using Pixelator to digitise negatives. My first reaction to him was, why would anyone want to hear about what I have to say? Reflecting on it, I think that there are people out there like me who aren't too fussed and who want a nice easy way to do it. That's what I wanted to show you today. I wanted to show you my no frills, easy peasy way to scan film. Okay, so here we have camera set up on the tripod. I use these little spirit levels which have nice little handy slots to go onto the hot shoe mount. Pointing straight down at my light box. I've not got it plugged in at the moment, it's not on. We've then got this little mask which comes with the Pixelator. It's got little cutout flaps, so it all fits very nicely. We have a roll of film here. I'm going to push down on the edge, which raises it up ever so slightly, just enough for us to slide our film in and click it back into place, and that is now holding it straight and in place, nice and secure. It's tight enough to hold it straight but not tight enough to scratch. When you first decide to start home developing and scanning your own film, there is an awful lot of information out there. I spent ages researching, wondering whether to buy a scanner, whether to do DSLR scanning, and you know, all the various options that are out there, from the cheapest scanners, which everyone says are rubbish, to the really expensive ones, which I was never going to buy because I didn't want to spend that much money on it. I came to the decision that I would do DSLR scanning. I already had a DSLR. It is mostly for scanning film. And I also had a macro lens, which is the other thing that is recommended when you're doing DSLR scanning. Currently this has an adapter on, so it's not usually quite that big, but it's got a lens head to block out some of the light. For me, it was the cheapest option. All I needed to buy was a different tripod, because the one that you're currently sat on won't point directly down. I couldn't place it over the negatives. There are people who have managed to do like wall mounted scanning, but that just seemed like a lot of fuss. So I got a second-hand tripod off of eBay. It is a Manfrotto, because I thought in this orientation I'll need a heavy duty one, otherwise it'll easily tip over. The other thing I needed to buy was a light box. These are quite cheap. I've ever so slightly damaged mine, but it doesn't matter, it still works perfectly. And then the pièce de résistance, the Pixelator. Pixelator! When I very first started scanning, I used the lomography digitalizer. They're fine. The second thing I did was I tried to create my own mask. I used a sheet of glass and literally a cereal box and cut out the right size hole, which gave these lovely edges, which I think I might try and emulate when I do some more darkroom printing, because I quite liked the fluffy edges, but ultimately not brilliant for scanning. And then Hamish sent me the Pixelator. I currently have it configured for 120 images, because that's the last thing that I was digitalising. And this one is brilliant. There's nothing wrong with lomography's digitalizer, but it just isn't quite as good as this one. I have here my lomography digitalizer. It is like a really lovely piece of kit. It's got a lovely metal back that's magnetised and slips out once your negatives are in place. But I wanted to share with you the reasons that I would choose the Pixelator over the lomography digitalizer if I were buying new. Adaptability. Straight out of the box you have 4x5, which is without any of the gates. You have 120 and 35mm. You can also purchase some extra gates, so you don't need any other frame. It is just the little gates that slot in. I've got some for sprocket holes. You can get some for like 127 film. You can also 3D print your own gates, so there's like open source designs for 3D printing, whatever your needs are. Number 2 is the price. The price of the Pixelator is about the same as one of the lomography digitalizers. However, with the lomography digitalizers, you only get 35mm or 120. Even if lomography had ones for 110 sprocket holes and all these other bits, you'd have to spend the same amount of money each time you wanted a different format. Number 3, the light distribution filter on the back. This means that you can put it against pretty much any light source and still get good results. I know there are many people who use their iPad screens or something like that to digitize, and so that's when things like those filters, the diffusion, helps. Point 4, the Pixelator comes with some legs. This one is a little bit odd because obviously usually we're scanning flat out on a light box or something like that. But in this case it means you could prop it up by some other sort of light source and run your negatives through in a propped up manner, which may well be much more comfortable for those who need to do this seated. One thing about the legs is, if you could prop it up by a window and you just wanted to get some quick scans of your freshly developed negatives rather than full quality ones, you can use an app on your phone. I've just downloaded one by Kodak, and you just basically choose colour negative or black and white, took a snap, and then I've just uploaded them here. Like, these are straight scans. I've not adjusted contrast or anything. These are literally as I took them on my phone. I did see there are like different ways that you can adjust contrast, but I thought that was really handy, you know, if you just want to get a feel for how your negatives will come out before you commit to fully scanning them. You may save yourself some time. And then my final bonus point, it is one product in one box with all the instructions there and easy to use. I don't know about you, but most of us have quite a collection of cameras, lenses, film stocks, and all the other paraphernalia that comes with shooting film. And so I don't want 7 lomography digitalizers when I could just have one box of Pixelator stuff. So I'm going to share some of my results. When I'm scanning my own negatives, I do it all using the Pixelator, using the setup that I've just showed you, and I convert my own negatives using Lightroom, and these are my results. And so I really hope this video is going to be useful, because when I was trying to work out how to scan my film, I was worried about pixels and trying to make sure we had the right aperture and the right exposure and the room was perfectly dark except for the light box and this, that and the other. But I mean, ultimately you don't really need it. I've seen people who can use the Pixelator with a phone app that converts their negatives, and really it depends on what you're digitalizing your negatives for. If the idea is to have the image printed digitally and blown up, then yes, you're probably going to want to go all out on megapixels and the size and this and that and make sure it's perfect. But for quite a lot of us, the main reason we digitize our negatives is to share them on things like Instagram or other social media. And so size is less of an issue. Sharpness becomes, you know, whilst it's important to have the image look the way you wanted it to, I don't think it's necessarily, you know, edge to edge, is there any distortion, you know, worrying about absolutely everything. For me, the negatives are there to be printed in the darkroom. That's where I'm going to worry more about sharpness, about making sure I've got the quality that I want for the enlargements that I want. For digitalizing, it's just not that important to me. For me, it's about ease. How quickly can I set up? The most tricky thing about my setup is remembering what configuration to have the tripod, because obviously I don't always have it out like this. It's often put away somewhere. So that is often the bit that takes the most time, is getting that out and getting that to the right height. This is how I do my 120 negatives, so flat on the table. But if I'm doing 35mm scanning, I literally just get some heavy books, raise the whole thing up like this so that it's closer to the camera, and then I'll sometimes adjust this one as well to get it a little bit lower so that the 35mm negs are closer to the lens. I would be really interested to know whether you have any tips that would make this even simpler. How do you scan your negatives? Are you as slapdash as I am, or are you someone who goes all out for sharpness and edge-to-edge quality? Leave a comment and let me know. Ultimately, I mean, look, I've been through it all, from cereal box cutouts, digitalizer, lomography's digitalizer, to Pixelator, and just finding my way with it. And so I wanted to do this video to say it doesn't have to be complicated.